All right, so are you ready to jump into another deep dive?
Always ready. Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So today we're taking a look at Madeline Miller's The Song of Achilles. And to help us with that, we've got, the usual Goodreads reviews, we've got a professional critique, and we've even got some notes for a book review video.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are really interested in this one.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully by the end of this, we can all figure out together if it's actually worth our time to read this book or not.
And I think I can say right off the bat that it is a really powerful retelling of the Trojan War story. Really beautifully written, but also like emotionally intense.
Okay, so maybe not a lighthearted beach read.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for the beach unless you're ready to, maybe shed a tear or two in the sand.
Got it. So we've got about 9 minutes to break this whole thing down.
Yeah, think of it as your personal book recommendation shortcut.
Perfect. I love a good shortcut. So in your expert opinion, who would you say is the ideal reader for this book?
Okay, so if you are into Greek mythology and you're looking for something that feels fresh and new and not just a rehashing of the same old stories, this is definitely a book for you. Also, if you love stories that have like really well-developed relationships, particularly queer relationships, this book really dives deep into the bond between Achilles and Patroclus.
Okay, cool. Now, a lot of these reviews I'm seeing keep mentioning lyrical prose, which honestly I'm always a little bit hesitant about. Can you give us like a concrete example of what that actually means in this book?
Of course. So there's this one line that a Goodreads reviewer pointed out where Achilles is described in battle, and it says, "He was a marvel shaft after shaft flying from him, spears that he wrenched easily from broken bodies on the ground to toss at new targets. Again and again I saw his wrist twist, exposing its pale underside, those flute-like bones thrusting elegantly forward." So it's like even in the middle of this chaotic battle, you make this sense of his like beauty and power, almost like an artistic slow motion shot.
Okay, yeah, I could definitely see that. But with all this talk about beauty and emotion and lyrical prose, does the plot ever actually like get going? Some of these reviews mentioned it being a bit slow.
That's fair. It's definitely a very character-driven story. So the beginning focuses a lot on building that relationship between Patroclus and Achilles, like from their childhood, and then training with the centaur Chiron. So if you're looking for like constant action, this might not be the right fit for you.
So it's kind of like a coming-of-age story, but within this epic Trojan War backdrop.
Yeah, exactly. And through their story, you see all these like huge themes play out. The brutality of war, the idea of fate versus free will. Like it really makes you think about what it means to be a hero and the sacrifices we make for the people we love.
Okay, so definitely some deep stuff there. But one reviewer I saw compared it to Romeo and Juliet, which kind of made me wonder, is this just like a tragic love story, but with Greek mythology thrown in?
It's not quite that simple. I mean, yes, there's definitely tragedy, but it goes beyond just romance. Their love is about loyalty, defying what society expects of them, and facing a world that doesn't really understand their bond. Yeah, it's heartbreaking, but it's also very powerful.
Interesting. So we've got beautiful writing, tons of emotion, and this really complex relationship at the heart of it all. But how does this book compare to some other popular reads out there? Like, have you read Circe, also by Madeline Miller? Are there any similarities there?
Yeah, that's a good question. Both books definitely delve into Greek mythology, and they both have that signature, like, gorgeous writing style that Madeline Miller is known for. But Circe has a very strong, independent female protagonist who really controls her own destiny, whereas in The Song of Achilles, Patroclus is a much more passive character. The focus is really on his relationship with Achilles. So the overall feel of the two books is pretty different.
So someone who loved Circe's, take charge attitude might find Patroclus a little bit frustrating.
It really depends what you're looking for in a story. Some readers might find Patroclus's devotion and willingness to sacrifice really admirable. It's a different kind of strength than what you see with Circe. And speaking of different perspectives, there's also A Thousand Shifts by Natalie Haynes.
Yeah, I've heard good things about that one. Does The Song of Achilles offer something unique compared to that one?
Yeah, so A Thousand Ships is really interesting because it tells the story of the Trojan War, but from the perspectives of the women involved.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so you get to hear from characters like Clytemnestra, Cassandra, Helen, and it really gives you this like broader view of the conflict and how it affected everyone.
Okay, so compared to that, The Song of Achilles is much more focused.
Exactly. It's like a deep dive into this one particular relationship. So it's a lot more intimate and emotionally driven.
Got it. So overall, big picture, would you recommend The Song of Achilles?
I would definitely recommend it. It's one of those books that just like stays with you long after you finish reading it.
Okay, but you did mention it's pretty emotionally intense and even tragic. So are readers just going to be left feeling bummed out?
It's not exactly a light and fluffy read, but there's a real beauty to the way that Madeline Miller handles the tragedy. It makes you think about those big questions about life and death and the choices that we make. So it's sad, but it's also kind of cathartic.
I can see that. But what about people who are maybe a little hesitant about that slow pace or the heavy themes? Any advice for them?
I'd say if you go into it knowing that the emotional payoff is huge, but it does build up gradually, it's worth it. But if you're looking for something a bit lighter, Circe or A Thousand Ships are both great options. But for a truly immersive and heart-wrenching experience, The Song of Achilles is pretty unique.
Cool. And before we move on to our final thoughts, anything in those video instructions stand out to you as like a typical viewer concern?
You know what's interesting? The instructions really emphasize addressing potential hesitations about the book. So it seems like viewers are worried about it being too slow or too romantic or just like a boring rehash of the Trojan War.
Oh, so the same stuff we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And it just goes to show, people want to make sure they're spending their time on something worthwhile.
Totally. So I guess, in your opinion, The Song of Achilles is a worthy investment for the right reader.
I think so, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. A thought-provoking question as they're deciding whether or not to pick up this book. Okay, so imagine this. Would you rather have a short life that's full of glory and adventure like Achilles? Or would you rather live a longer life, but maybe one that's less, remarkable?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. It really makes you think about what's truly important. It's not just about the length of your life, but what you do with it.
Exactly. Like, would you choose fleeting fame, or would you choose, like, a love that lasts a lifetime?
Yeah, it's a powerful question, and it really gets at the heart of what this book is all about. It's not just a love story and adventure story. It's about legacy and what we leave behind.
And I think that's what makes it so thought-provoking. It forces you to examine your own values and think about what kind of life you want to live.
Absolutely. And that's what good storytelling should do, right? It should stay with you even after you finish the book and make you think about these big questions.
So to wrap things up for everyone listening, The Song of Achilles is a beautifully written, emotionally intense journey into the world of Greek mythology. It's a story about love and loss and the power of human connection, but it also explores themes of fate, free will, and what it means to live a meaningful life.
And it reminds us that even the greatest heroes are still human. They're capable of incredible strength, but also incredible vulnerability. And I think that's what makes this story so captivating.
For sure. So if you're listening for a book that will stay with you long after you finish reading it, a book that will make you feel deeply and maybe even challenge your perspectives, The Song of Achilles is definitely worth checking out.
And if you're still not sure, I'd say go back and look at those sources we mentioned, the Goodreads reviews, the professional critique, even those video instructions. Hearing different opinions can really help you decide if it's the right book for you.
Awesome advice. All right. Well, happy reading, everyone, and we'll see you on our next deep dive. 2CP.